Late nights, impossible deadlines, and borderline OCD mix in a cauldron of dysfunction. Behind the magic and the polished product, the inner workings of the designer. I'm Gary Ong, the host of Behind the Build, and I have today with me.
Hi, I'm Peter, design consultant of both collectives.
If you can tell us your story.
Story.
So, how do you come about designing that? So you can start from there.
How did I come up with my design inspiration there?
No, it's in the how do you come about
Going in
when you're coming out as a creative person, then moving on, and then ended up in this industry. Tell us the story behind that.
Okay, I think started off in secondary school. Where I took design and technology, D&D. Then I was always very fond of creating my own product, like say making a coaster, making coin boxes for myself. Then after that, because my dad, who is also a main contractor, so once in a while during primary school, he will always bring me to his site. Then he'll say, okay, you help me hold or you give me the nails for those rivers for the window. You give me, after you finish coating, I'll pass you $50. So I'm being paid to assist him. Then after that, after O levels, during poly, I wanted to do product design. Or in fact, actually, I wanted to go in to become an artist as well, go into the art industry. But they always say when you're in art industry, you won't survive.
You start.
Yes, starving artist, starving art. So because of that, I said, okay, let's just try product design. But after that, I was thinking that since my dad is in this industry, why not just go into architecture and design. So I went into Temasek Poly, retail and hospitality design. Then followed on with university in LaSalle, did interior design as well. And then now I'm out on my own.
I think we have a similar storyline. My dad is in the main con industry. I had a passion for art in school, so I did a lot of mediums like painting, sculpting, and the thought of starting out this has always been stuck in my head. Based on the media that we have been consuming, our parents telling us, "No, art school is not for you." So I thought, how could we turn that into something more practical that I know of? And therefore, I also had no idea. Yeah, but I didn't continue becoming an architect. I moved on to doing construction and eventually becoming a hybrid doing design and build. So that is how I came about. And I think a lot of us, we have this similar background. I think out of a few of the peers around us, I do see this same storyline.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who took over their father's business, mainly contracting companies. Then I also do have friends who potentially would take over the father's design and build company as well. Yeah, but it's something that is very common in among our peers because we are all in this industry together and we all graduated from the same school.
I have a lot of peers who dropped out, not in terms of school, but halfway throughout this working life, they feel like it's not for them, it's hard work, starting from the ground up. It's actually a long way to mastery, and a lot of them do not have the patience to continue. And I also have friends who are architects, but they end up dropping down to doing interior design. So downgrade or not is very subjective. Like, to me, I've always liked the idea because Archi, we do a lot of more things. I've heard of architects who end up just designing for toilets, for a living. And it gets depressing after a while. You take a master's, you take 2 years in your logging program and
your licensing
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So personally, as a young man like me, what do you think is the future of this industry?
I think the most prominent one that we know of as of now is AI.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will start to wonder, do we actually need designers anymore? Or can we just rely on AI? It's something that we cannot escape from. Like AI will catch up, even in the design industry one day. And all these AI softwares are going to be very refined to the point where it can really behave as though a designer was not designing. I think most importantly, I think if for you who study architecture, there's something that is very key to the industry is architecture is human. So no matter how we use AI to assist us in our work, cannot replace the human touch, the human brain to how we apply into our design. But so instead of seeing as AI will replace us, why not use it as a beneficial tool to enhance our work as a designer?
I think knowing where to hammer the nail is more important than hammering the nail itself. So when we talk about AI, when people are adopting it and asking whether it can replace human designers, we need to ask what's the extent of AI right now. So it's mostly generating perspective views, right? And we know that because I personally use it, I'm sure you have, and they require prompts still. And the second generation of a generated AI model will never be the same. Am I right? And in the more practical sense, when we try to input maybe cost values in this AI generation, it doesn't turn out the way that we want it to be. So to me, AI is very far away from replacing designers ourselves. As like you mentioned, architecture and human design, right? We talk about sunlight, in which direction is it facing a role, and you've got regulations involved. I think we're very far away from putting these things into machine learning.
I think yes, I understand that AI is still far away from what it can do to replace designers or architects, but I would say it's probably not very far. Maybe another few years, it should be able to be so refined that we may not even need prompts. They just need to refer to, like, say, our SketchUp model, and then from there they are able to immediately detect it and translate. Because now it's still in this relatively beta version where sometimes they'll detect a wall as a glass, which it can be annoying sometimes. But I think most importantly is designers still have to do the models as of now. But AI should just give us an extra boost of creativity, like how Pinterest is.
So I've always used AI and I always think that there is not a full depth when it comes to topics. It's always very generalized. For example, if I'm a marketer and I am using AI to do copywriting, it's always on very general levels. So if you want to take your creation further and deeper, then human touch cannot be ignored. So my opinion is that I think it's going to take a lot longer because the moment the right mind will program business to a AI model, then everyone's going to be rich, right? So I don't think that's going to happen far away, in my opinion. Can you remember a time where I invited you to join the Society of Interior Design? I met you a year ago, right?
1 year ago.
Yes. Yeah, I think I told you about it a while ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And this my reason for joining the society was to raise the barrier to entry to this profession and make it look more professional. I think a lot of times we've been undercut undermined and thought less of by the industry, or by industry I mean uh, buyers, right? They will think that we are tagged to the word IT, and you know what's the connotation behind that?
Yes, the black
And
shoes.
that's why I think you join the society to make a difference. I rather more or less active there, and I'm also trying to find ways to fulfill this mission. But at the same time, we have to work on our business and our how do you say credibility to be able to push these missions. Because who's going to listen to someone who has no substance, in a cruder way to put it? How about you? What is your idea about the society?
I think it's good to having a society that is good for like-minded individuals to come together as one that have the same vision as you, right? To bring up the whole barrier of this industry, because unfortunately anybody can become an IE, an interior designer who focuses on sales and residential units. That's the problem where if anybody can become interior designers, and if the whole market reaches a point where everybody is just fighting a price war, then it's just a matter of like what I'm saying, who can undercut better. Then in this case, what's the value of design? Like there are cases where people who wants everything in the house, who wants their house to be very, say, minimalist, to want somebody to run from design all the way to build itself. But they are not willing to pay for the design fee, first of all, and second, the project management.
So why do you think so? Why do you think people don't want to pay for those?
No doubt that cost is the biggest factor, that obviously everybody wants to save money. But secondly, I would say the general crowd still doesn't value design.
I don't think that that value has been dumped by people who don't have that value, and that's why they underplay it, and then they commoditize it, right? And then they use AI to just do everything. So that's how I look at why people refuse to pay for these fees. Because in a professional setting, there's no way on earth that if I don't put project manager there and I don't charge you for it, nothing's gonna move. So maybe as you mentioned, in a private industry like the home market, I think buyers are not educated enough. They do not know what's the other side to not paying for it until it happens to them.
Yeah, until they have all the renovation disasters.
And as if it's not, as if the news and all the articles are not daunting enough. Even I'm afraid for my name because of these people.
Then it makes all the clients, or most of the clients in the future, become very, very wary of the people that they consult. And if let's say all the clients are going towards, like say, finding 12 companies to for companies to pitch, then it goes back to the whole idea of who can I who can give me the cheapest. But also then it gets very tricky also, because during consultation itself, right, I can give you everything, I can give you everything very, very nicely. But then the next question is, how do you actually gauge whether this designer is going to take care and project manage your house properly, comparing to another company? But you will never know until the whole renovation case, unfortunately.
And then it's how these clients so-called rate the companies. So they rate it based on design. Oh, he gave me something I like. But maybe they didn't talk about how long it took or the level of service. They don't mention it. But there are some people, I believe, that value the level of service. The house doesn't need to be fantastic. It doesn't have to look like the palace. Uh, but it's like, oh, I like dealing with these people. They're honest, they're sincere. They got mostly what I want. Let's live with it, and then we can still be friends, right?
I think most importantly is whether the client trusts the designer. Because if there is no mutual trust, then it becomes no matter what, right, I'll be very wary of the things that you do. And then from a consultant or a builder's point of view is, will this client pay me the deposit or pay me the lease? That's why once the trust is there, then it becomes okay. I know you are going to do what is best for my house. Then okay, I will trust you to make the decision for me. And then from the designer's point of view is I trust that this client will be okay whenever I ask for the next phase payment. So I need trust. Very important.
Do you think it's a matter of perception as to how the clients perceive you?
I always believe from like how I try to network or run a business, right, is I want to make sure any client that comes forward should understand me as a person and as a friend, because you know who I am deep down outside of work, outside of business, then it will determine whether you trust me or not. Rather than somebody coming straight to me and say like, can I trust you? I see your work, I like your work. There could always be some doubt. Yeah.
So let's move on. Design school. The biggest gift is lack of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Until now. But I think as we grow older, we learn how to manage our workflow and our stress. It kinds of get better. So what's your favorite stimulant?
Stimulant
to keeping yourself fresh or in the long hours? Sleeping loop.
no. I think I take a lot of afternoon naps.
Yeah. You're a healthy one.
No, because I'm always tired.
Oh man. I have coffee till it doesn't work. And then beer helps me. It's not the healthiest one.
Yes, but it helps. I mean, I've heard cases of creative people going to a bar and then like got there like they just drink, and that's where the most creativity flows.
Guilty. But creativity doesn't just come in solving design problems. It's how do we find the right tone and the right energy to talk to someone? I find creativity in that's all. And I feel it's just as important as the project itself. So do you do day drinking?
No, I don't drink.
Or you don't drink? Yeah, I don't drink. Yeah. You ever end up dating inside the industry?
Yeah, in school.
That's where it ends in school. Or you're
Yes.
going back to school now. Just another topic. Okay. Okay, what ventures have you tried? We are some of our experiences. So what are the ventures you've tried? Maybe they have failed or you're still continue, I mean, still in the process of doing it? Or what are these ventures that you tried that made you who you are today?
I think the key knowledge that shaped me to who I am was actually in university, where the school taught us creative thinking.
A hot lecturer.
No. So last time in Polytechnic formation is very different. Is as long as they are able to teach you what you need to survive in the industry, then that's it. You're free on your own.
Right.
But university, that's where they teach you a lot of whys. Like why did this person do this way? Why did the architect do it this way? For me, I always try to stick to this philosophy or this psychology term called the nature and nurture. Whenever I design, it's always about understanding human behavior. Whether it's designing because of the client's nature or designing to shape the client's nature, which is in nurture. By doing that, it makes the whole project more creative and more personalized to each individual itself rather than just purely designing on aesthetic like minimalism, modern luxury, all this. Not saying that all these are not something that I used to design, but it's a very secondary thing that I do. So whenever I start every project, I always try to understand the client as a human. Like say whether they are artists or even designer themselves, or even say dancer. Then the way the whole residential unit would be very different because the space changes as per how the client is.
So the dancer with more mirrors in the house, I presume.
Well, maybe not all the walls, but there will be one specific mirror on as a feature, which act as a as a feature for their living room. But we make the living room very long,
Open long for them to check themselves. Yeah. Put pole in the center.
Right. Then when we design it, then while the dancer is facing the mirror, we will not have any structure, let's say direct light. Or everything will be very soft light. Yeah, so for me, it's always trying to understand about the human behavior of things. And sometimes I would say science, psychology. Yeah. So these three.
So speaking of behavior, I have this I want to ask. Man cave, yay or nay?
Yay.
I'm all nays for it, but please tell me why yes.
I think coming from
Really? I am Cochette. You single? Lovely. You know what? Yeah.
because I need my own space and stuff.
Jay?
Yeah, so I think for me I don't play games. I mean not much. At most like soccer games. But I don't believe having a man cave right now. If I were to have my own house, I will have a corner where it's just me. Because imagine after one whole day of work, you just want to be alone. And for those who play games, sure. If you want to just watch TV in this full enclosed area, yeah, sure. Anyway, as long as whatever that makes you feel better for your mental health.
For me, it's more of a communal living. I feel man cave is too isolated. Right? Playing games, you drag the hours out, and everyone else has moved a few hours later, and you're still stuck where you were a few hours ago.
But so that's what it's comforting, though. It's a form of recharge for yourself as well.
Some might say that is escapism, but we're not good at that. Personally, I feel if I had problems or if I had games, if I had hobbies, I would like them to be shared with the people that I live with, because there must be a certain level of comfort if you're living with the people in the house. So I always believe in the sharing, and I'm not so much of a introvert, so I like to be out and about. So if I can, I won't even be home. So I would never need a man cave. I basement maybe.
I'm in the middle. So if you ask me to socialize, sure. But I also need my own time to just relax. Like, I mean, you're a driver. And every time after I park at home, I will just spend 30 minutes in the car.
No, let me pay student.
Listening to your favorite music.
Oh, no, I don't listen to any music. I just slow down and then just use my phone.
So Vincent, 快点在信的课里，你想给的课不管是
Because life is tiring, and then these private spaces help us recharge.
Yeah, so that's why I support the idea of making, because it's another representation of how we just sit in a car or sit in a toilet, because it's our own piece.
So it kind of boils down to our coping mechanism to the stress of life. Generally, I'm okay, like resilience to the years of mental torture from this industry. I would like to say I'm more resilient.
Yes.
Easier to forget pain and move on and work on purpose. My purpose cannot be achieved alone, and that's why I know being around people comfortably pushes me in that direction, even though not transactionally, not immediately, but in general terms, it's moving that way on an uptrend. The right group of the okay, sometimes meeting people that you don't even know is also a form of therapy. Yeah, true. There's no judgment, right? You can tell them the real things that happen and they have no judgment for it. Because they have no context to who you spoke to or how was the conversation played out or is it in relation to previous events, things like that. Then they have no investment in the past. So to me it's a form of therapy sometimes.
Like just sharing your problems to somebody, and you may never see them ever again.
But it's nice if someone like that is willing to listen to your problem.
Yeah, this trauma devastation of the trauma one is like 3 things from什么意思？The reason like half the thing is dead.
Probably 50% of the time, the guy is not even listening to you also.
I met strangers at the bar. They just started a conversation. I don't fully trauma dump. Maybe it's a 40% trauma dump and 60% like talking about mischievous times and you kind of bond over it and out with friends
Until the alcohol kicks in.
Oh, we had that whole conversation on alcohol.
Yeah, because that's in the context with alcohol. And anything with alcohol is a different story. Yeah.
I kind of feel that it lowers the veil and it shows, magnifies your emotions, and you can bring your vulnerability to people around you. Like, personally, I'm always very cold, emotionally cold. But after 1, 2 drinks, I lose my weight water and that's the way I cope with it. I mean, if you have only healthy ways, I'm totally unhealthy. I'm not an example for stress coping. I'm not a perfect example for coping with stress. Just in the ways that I find it familiar.
I can take 2 naps a day.
I envy you.
That's how I cope.
Okay, we'll take a short break from here. When we come back, we'll speak about the projects that you have done and what you're working on. Alright? Okay, so we're back and we're going to talk about some projects that we good / bad / neutral. We'll figure that out later. But I just want to say, I heard of this saying, doctors rely on you to get sick for their business. And a lawyer depends on you to get into trouble for their business. But for us designers, we depend on our clients to make it big, become rich for our business. So we wish the best for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, agree. And adding on also, it may not need to be for the business to grow until very big before they can come to us. Even for startups like F&B, cafes, retail shops, they can always come to us no matter how big or small the budget is. And then we incorporate their branding together with their space, and hopefully, for them to grow.
So personally, I like business problems. So my favorite project types are mostly commercial spaces. So that includes F&B, retail, medical, and offices. Because most of the time, the problems that we are solving are, is there cost certainty to what we're doing? Is there speed to what we're doing? And eventually, is there results to what we're doing? So results could be my clients are able to charge more after going through a whole remodeling. Sometimes it's about the space or the stand that holds the product rather than the product itself. And what are your favorite project types?
I mean, both residential and commercial I've done before, but if it's for residential, I would generally prefer landed property, like semi-D, bungalow, terrace. Not because of the budget, but more of the free play and creativity. Like say anything with A&A, Recon, where they want to redesign their attic. Then you get to play with opening up roof, skylight, get to bring in nature into the space rather than HDB or condo where generally everything is kind of fixed. Like, because as mentioned, I like to play with psychology and behaviorism. So if let's say, if the concept allows me to put the toilet all the way at the entrance, because a lot of times toilet is where we spend a lot of our own peace and alone time in the space. So what if the toilet becomes a transitional space, right, before you step into the rest of your house? But if we were to do more on HDB, or this is not something that we can change because the toilet is at where it is.
It's a very radical thought.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can do a corridor to the toilet first. And then
Yeah.
But that's just for laughs.
Correct. So, but in terms of commercial wise, generally I would prefer commercial purely because of the concept. And back to behaviorism as well, it's understanding about consumer behavior, like how F&B, what do you want them to feel when they enter a space, whether is it cafe, retail, or like say how long do they spend dining in their space. Everything all are calculated through the design.
I think when it comes to those spaces that you spoke about, cafe, retail, I think one of the biggest questions is always, where do I put the cash counter? Then there's no fixed answer to that, right?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, as long as you are able to rationalize from a design point of view, but also in the consideration of the business, whether it makes logical sense to put the POS all the way at the back. And if you are able to, why? It should be strong enough for anybody to walk into the space and understand that, rather than having, like, say, a board that tells you, oh, the reason why we put the POS behind is because blah 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 blah. So it should be something that even though designers want to intend to create, it should be very layman to the general crowd.
The biggest problem we solve is circulation, right? A lot of times, back of house staff have a clash in their operations because some spaces were not taken care of properly, not addressed. And this person clashes with this person during a busy period, and therefore we are called in to fix that problem. I feel that a lot of first-time owners face this. They always have reference points to the places they've been to. Oh, I think they should be there. That should be nice. But they never think about expansion. When things get busy, what is not efficient anymore. So essentially, we come in to fix a lot of these problems. And the aesthetics are, eye of the beholder kind of thing. And why I like commercial, similarly to you, is how much free play we have. Like, we design the space not for our client mainly to think it's nice. I mean, his customers have to think the place is nice as well. And they have to enjoy the experience there and make them want to keep returning to that spot. So we always tackle problems in a structured way. So it's always layout, circulation, then the aesthetical part of it. But of course, we don't go into details like, what material the signage should be, what colors it should be. I mean, those are at a later time. But I also have clients who want to rebrand, but they don't know what they want. So for us, we come in, we try to understand them, we speak to them, what are your goals, what have you had so far, what do you want to see more of, what are the intangible things, the questions we ask has to be able to target and address. So that's what I like about commercial, because there's so much more than just mood board and what soft furnishings are we using, what brand. There's a lot more than that.
For me, I specifically like commercial because of the branding element as well. Because for me, other than doing interior design and trying to incorporate companies' branding and logo into the space, because I also do graphic design as a hobby as well. So it is, to me, it's always very interesting how just from a brand identity, we are able to translate something that is relatively flat on screen into a behavior or a mood that their clients are able to feel, or the customers are able to feel. So to me, that's the most interesting part.
Have you come across clients who say their branding is red in color, and then they tell you, I want all my chairs to be red. I want all my tables to be red. The wall has to be red as well, ceiling has to be red. So, yes, I know branding is important to you, but the element of red is, it cannot be overwhelming. So sometimes we reservedly propose, say, maybe 5% of the color scheme to be red, but at the areas that matter. Yeah. Some of them buy it, a lot of times we face resistance, but we still show them through our design intent that it can be possible to strike off your brand without being too overwhelming.
Yeah, and for us as designers, it's not always about design, create, but we are problem solvers as well.
So it's fix.
And so if let's say client come to us with what they want, yes, we incorporate what they want, but it's also up to us to tell them whether it's feasible or what if it's not practical, what is the next solution to it. Yeah. To ultimately make their life more easier, because we are the problem solvers rather than just purely creating. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. Like, there are encounters where, say, the client will question, say, if I tell you everything that I want, then what's the point of you guys? Yeah. So
But it's always a consultative process, like I always mention. It's not something that I can read your mind and like, oh, Mr. Hu, I can come up with new concepts for you, or I'm not here to give you suggestions. I'm here to fix problems. And then that comes in the way that we carry out our whole customer service. And I think a lot of designers like that as well. They fail to position themselves as a problem solver rather than an idea generator. That being said, I've had clients who have paid me design fees and have never used my design in the end. Have you had such things happen to you?
Yes, have. There's one project is on sustainability. So the whole concept was, I would say, relatively interesting, that we wanted to break away from the stereotypical videos to try to encourage the world to be eco-friendly. So instead of targeting towards just in your face, come, save the world, we did it in a more interactive way, where we force the volunteers and the visitors to cross path. And a lot of times, like I say, when we remember something, or we make it into a habit, a lot of times it's more of a feel good factor for ourselves. So instead of trying to have somebody tell you, say, okay, in your face, if you don't save, if you don't be eco-friendly, right, the world is gonna die.
Oh, that's fear.
Yeah, but a lot of times we don't really act out upon fear, but more of what we feel good about ourselves that will make us want to continue doing it, like those dopamine. Yeah, but end up the project didn't go through because the total renovation cost for that field shot up to, I think, 5 million. The client couldn't find investors for it, so end up the project just disappeared.
Yours is all more macro, the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Mine, on a macro scheme, I can remember, is a kiosk in a very high traffic area. So this kiosk is about 4x8 by 4x8. So it's quite sizable, right? So my initial design to my client was to have interactive spaces within the kiosk where her potential customers can walk through and experience the space. Right? She paid me my design fees, I gave her my suggestions, did the messing model, came up with the aesthetics. It was all okay. Until one night, hey Jarek, I think I want this style. So it became a castle. The layout became a castle. And as you can imagine, no one walked in at all. I'm not pinning everything on the client. I feel that maybe I have not done enough. I don't know, it's my failure to sell the idea to the client and to sell her well-being. So whenever I walk past it, it's always mixed feelings for me. And I wish I could have done better. Stark reminder of my failures. Okay, then there's the other spectrum where we do provide a nice design and budget doesn't match. So of course we give substitutions using colors, using materials, using different heights and whatnot, and even using the M&E above ceiling to put the space together. And that is still somewhere that I can walk to and feel good. Yeah, maybe we do away with the ceiling installations. Yeah, maybe that's not important. But the space is functional, it's productive, it's efficient, and it's profit making, because that is one of the metrics that I sell my services. Profit making. So maybe you can share some of your projects, which we will put up somewhere. You can walk us through. I see you have something very nice on your screen. Please walk us through. Yes. Sit here. Yeah, Pete. So please walk us through something interesting.
Okay, so this project is psychiatrist clinic. So when a client came to us, he wanted to break away from the conventional clinic in general, rather than having that long corridor and different rooms. So I came up with the idea of having to play with light and shadow, because specifically this is for like people with depression, with a range all the way from say 60 plus down to 15. Yeah. So it's when I came up with the inspiration or the proposal for this concept, it's trying to understand from uh, a consumer with depression. Where was I?
Consumer,
Yeah.
consumer.
Trying to understand how somebody would react or behave when he or she is depressed. So by doing this entire floor plan, right, this floor plan, every pocket of space has a portion with shadow, and the opposite side is a direct source, sunlight. It can be artificial light, it can be sunlight. Idea for them is to look up. But also because this space is a relatively small space, so I didn't want to have those dividers. If we have those dividers, first of all, you make the whole space very small. And secondly, it will feel very cubicle-like. So the placement of the patients when they come in for their appointment, where they sit, the distance to the next person who is also waiting for their consultation is more than 3 meters away, without any form of partitioning. So you can still see the person, but you don't feel the person. So by doing this, I'm able to create a space where they are able to feel free and comfortable, but not closing them up completely. Then wherever they are sitting, depending on where they sit with the light source, the ceiling height are all different. So if for example the corridor where they are walking with one direct source of light directly in the center, the ceiling, say we will leave it slightly higher. Then wherever that they are sitting down, because they want to feel comfortable, we want to have a lower ceiling. So the ceiling will be reduced all the way down to maybe say standard 2.6, while the corridor can be all the way up to 3 meter. Then the only sunlight that was coming in from the space was the entrance. But the entrance, they didn't want to do it as though it becomes too clinical as well. But yet at the same time, we still want the sunlight to come in. So how can we create the only source of natural lighting become a focal point for the patients to look straight?
From first looks, it looks like a Zen garden.
Yeah, so that's the whole idea of trying to break away from the conventional bright light, white light, and things like that to make everything more calm. How you want them to feel before their consultation. Everything starts from the moment they enter the clinic. So that's why everything is more dim. Then you just have a certain focal light coming in, or some ambient light, some cove lighting, just to brighten up the space a bit.
So I'm sure there's a certain amount of organic materials that you should have brought into play, right? So did you have plants, maybe nice smells, running water, music?
Running water, the one will be a bit tough as much as I would love to. But just now I mentioned between patients to patient, the only divider in that sense, right, will be plants. So you can still feel and know that there is somebody around, but it's not so close psychologically where you feel very oppressed. Then wherever that they are looking at, you just have a light source towards a plant. Yeah.
This is what I like so much about commercial spaces. Not only are we given the freedom to work with spaces, we get to create an artificial environment.
Mm.
It could be hot, bright daylight outside, but inside here, just between this wall and door, it's a whole different environment.
Yeah, correct.
That is what I like. It's like the composer music. This is what I feel true design should feel like.
Yeah, so these are some basic sketches to just show how we can use sunlight and shadow to create different mood into the space. And then by having your different ceiling heights, what kind of ambience do you want to give to the visitor or the patient? Yeah. Then instead of having a light source while walking through transitional spaces, you don't want to have a light source directly on top of you because it will feel like you are in the spotlight. So because of that, all the light along the corridor, everything is on the lower end. So they are still being oriented towards where they need to go, but at least it's dark enough where they still feel comfortable. Yeah, it's not forced.
It's not like directional arrow kind of light in your
Yes.
face.
Then this is just the artist impression that we were going for. So the materials, I think really we are trying to break away from the solid color, just purely on color alone, right? To try to brighten up a clinic. But all the material that we are using, the light source coming from the medication room, all is specifically designed to make a patient feel comfortable and less clinical.
So can I ask you, in this environment, if we were to make patients take off their shoes, do you think that will create a different experience as well?
If they were to take off their shoe, then that would change the way we design the floor as well. So whether it can be, say, for example, a carpet flooring or a parquet flooring, because you wouldn't want your barefoot to be touching the tile. But because this is a clinic, so still have to go through the medical permit. Then because of cleanliness, easy maintenance, carpet is not feasible.
Because I'm thinking if they were to put on slippers and go to the room, it feels more like a therapy session where you leave your troubles at the door. I don't know. It's something that we can explore.
Yeah, so even the consultation room, they are all designed in a way where it just kind of feels like a house. Like as though you're just at your lounge with one floor lamp, and then you may not even need to face the psychiatrist. Don't need to face the doctor. You can be facing the wall. The psychiatrist can be behind you. As long as it makes you feel comfortable rather than a face-to-face consultation. So even for consultation room or even the waiting area outside, the light source that you're providing, the height of the light source that you're providing, whether it's on the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor, all this would create a different ambience as well. I like to add those floor lamp, because floor lamp, I always feel that as long as anything that are closer to the ground, you feel more at peace with yourself rather than having like a direct source of light coming on top of you.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So
it's
what was the tragedy?
The
It looks amazing, by the way. So
okay,
what's
so
the
I
tragedy?
show. Okay, this is the initial concept where, as you can see, all the waiting area are all separated far away from each other. So we try to use distance to create boundary or invisible boundary between patients. If it's not feasible, we will use orientation. And if there's orientation, we will try to use like a screen to create a tangible boundary. But after adding clients' feedback with everything that they wanted, the whole corridor or the waiting area became back to the conventional shape.
And this is after you have modeled out
Yes.
the perspective.
Yeah.
So from here onwards, did you continue with modeling after this?
They
For the changed floor plan?
decided to go with another designer.
So in a way, they were not willing to try a new layout. They wanted something that is familiar to themselves.
I think
It was quite clinical.
yes. So a lot of times when clients they say they want to try something new, they end up being very wary of like, will this work? Because this could potentially or is the first clinic that tries to break away from the conventional design. Maybe at that time they were just not ready to take on that change. And with all the permits, from all the medical permits, they don't know if it would be approved. Then given whatever that the client wanted, because initially it was just one consultation room. But after that, they added another consultation room. Then they added like a larger medicine room. So because of that, right, the only thing that we could compromise was the corridor. Was the waiting area.
It has been reverted to a typical clinic, I would say.
Yeah. So and for this we one more thing I want to add also, just now we mentioned having the POS all the way at the back. So this was actually one layout that we proposed where the POS was all the way at the back. Reason for it is because it can feel very daunting when you open the door and the first thing you see is a reception. So it feels very clinical, it feels very corporate.
Go into your buyer mentality. Oh, these people are trying to sell me stuff.
Correct. So to understand whether if I'm in that position, right, would I want to encounter first thing open, I see somebody, sure, the person can come and greet me, but by them greeting me with the table in front of me, it feels very transactional.
And also paranoid because they will think, hey, does this person know about my case files? Which is supposed to be confidential. There's this worry.
Yeah, so we put it all the way behind. So if you will make them feel like, I'm just walking into a home, into a house. Yeah.
So we put that cold side of it outside our mind. Yeah. So maybe if we told doctor, hey, I have been a patient before, I will understand the space. Maybe you will listen.
Yeah.
It's just a joke.
I mean, I do have a lot of friends who are going through this. Yeah, so sort of understand them partially. That's why when I designed this space, I was like thinking from their point of view.
So that's the thing, right? Because clients always look at ID as idea generators. They do not understand that we have done research before we even put pen to paper. So what makes good and average is the research that we put into things. For example, if I were to be doing a grocery store, we have to start the circulation from right to left. Put all the expensive things on the outside, all the lower margins on the inside, make it right-handed for them to pick up things on the right and left hand push the shopping cart or carry their basket, for example. So it's all these little research details that really make or break a space. And I think a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, which all this you mentioned are consumer psychology.
Yes.
Is understanding how we as consumers would behave in a space. Then nature or nurture.
So I noticed these days when you put out pitch proposals, you also show the storyline and the research behind it. I feel that's a very good practice. The client knows what they're paying for. They know that you have their interests at heart. And I feel every designer should practice it. Don't go to AI and just generate a perspective and go to your client and say, hey, I got something nice for you. Most of the time, it's not good.
I mean, AI should enhance your work rather than making it your only source of design generation.
Like what we spoke earlier, people would commoditize what they don't have. Downplay other people's strengths as weaknesses, and that's where we get a market condition like that. Okay, but enough with the doom saying. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. The next one would be a residential project. This inter-terrace.
Beautiful.
Okay, so this client sold his condominium and then bought over this inter-terrace. And the wife loves plants, nature. So the whole concept of this was to allow or to alter the whole space to intangibly allow nature to come into the space. So all of the windows, doors, everything open, natural ventilation, very nature oriented. So for this project, I freehand drew for them the entire 2+1 of the entire space, right? Yeah. They love the presentation, they love the concept. Then I also did like photo montage. Yeah, to roughly allow them to visualize how the space would look like. I mean, I didn't do the render for this, so I just took some photos together with their existing furniture that they wanted to bring over. They are incorporated into the spaces and they will ask me, okay, I have this furniture. Where do you think is best to put into their new space? So I proposed all these things for them. Went through I think about 2 or 3 revisions, and then after that, ultimately was the quotation. So the quotation, they at that time they couldn't decide whether they wanted to use this as a temporary 5-year home and then after they sell it away for profit, or they want it to be a retirement home that they want to just spend their
rest of their days
right there. They couldn't decide, so I told them, I said, okay, in this case, whatever that I propose in the quotation and or the scope of works would be the maximum where I would assume that you are going to stay there forever. So the total renovation came out to be 500k. And then after I told them, I said, out of this 500k, right, 30k is my design fee and my project management fee. I will not take anything else. There's no VAVO or anything for my end. 30k flat. So that's where the disaster came.
I have had experience like that before, where we're doing works for friends. So I said, hey, why not I fix a cost plus kind of contract with you lah? So whatever cost that I can find to build this thing up, I just take 10%. And they're like, and then they get taken aback. Maybe they are not used to it, these kind of offers, but no, just do it the normal way. And I'm sure? Sure. And
turns out to be hard.
Yeah, but we can't tell them that because we will make them feel stupid. I think we shouldn't be saying this on camera. Okay, but
which one?
Whatever I just said. Okay, but when we look at this kitchen, right, whether they're staying there 5 years or forever, your kitchen still needs to have functionality in it, right? Then you still need a place to cook and boil water. You need to have a fridge, a pantry. So was that something that you could have convinced them to do, maybe at a lower spec, maybe at a different size?
So at that time, after I sent the quotation out, I did tell them, I met them together with to show them the quotation and even the scheduling. The schedule itself, I also told them, say, okay, this is the schedule. We are not able to make it for a certain point before we couldn't complete the house before they can move in. So I even gave them alternative. I say, okay, so you have two alternatives. One is either you're saying go on holiday, just give me extra 2 weeks to go on holiday, and then I will complete the house, and then after you all can just completely shift in. Or the other one is, if you all shift in, you must be aware that every day, right, there will be renovation going on.
Yeah.
And in order for because all the bedrooms are upstairs, second floor, I can polish the parquet for you for the staircase. But with your carpentry not done, right, every single day there are people going to come up and down. You are going to end up paying extra to polish the parquet. So I say best suggestion, you just go on that stay over at your relative's place for the 2 weeks, right? And just give me the extra 2 weeks. And they were okay with it. So recently, because I went to play sports with the son, so the son told me they really, really liked my presentation. They liked my design. They liked the way I presented. The only thing that they refused to accept was the 30K design fee.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's what they end up. I didn't get this project. But they didn't let me explain myself. So yes, I did meet them on the quotation for the quotation. I did tell them 30K, but I also told them that this is based off that I assume you are going to stay there forever. So naturally, I will push the what I feel is best for the house, right? For the natural ventilation. This house is very unique because it has those shop house airwell. So that was one of the crucial design.
Central airwell.
Correct.
Right.
That
Little courtyard.
Yeah, that was one of my main focus. So every single bedroom that was connected to the airwell, the windows were all altered.
Nice.
So it was based off of the full maximum concept that I could design for them. Then I also told them, say, you must let me know if it's forever or not. If it's not, if it's just a 5-year, right, a lot of things will change. I can design everything to the bare minimum, right, for you to just live 5 years and then sell it away. But for one entire month, they didn't get back to me or they didn't let me explain myself on that. Then 1 month later, when I asked again, I lost the project to another company who, for example, able to do everything for them at the simplest design at like maybe say 100, 200.
So don't you think they already made up the decision on what they wanted? It's not about staying how long or maybe they were looking up to you as a hope that if you had something nice, they could stay forever. So I feel it's a lot of uncertainty internally. And sometimes clients are not honest with it. But we can see in the way they present and posture and they speak to us about their projects. And generally, I would also leave open-ended on the table. My solutions would be open-ended. But most of the time, it will sound like, we shall speak again. No worry, I'll still be here for you. But when you're ready.
I think what like me aback, right, is really the statement of, I like the way you present. I love your presentation. I love your design. I want to go with you, but I'm not willing to pay the 30,000. Then in this case, right, it goes back to the whole question on how much do people actually value design?
No, it seems that they're not willing to pay the 300, not the 30.
500K.
Yeah, from 5 to 1, right? So it's about 300-ish. So it seems like they're more not willing to pay the 300 rather than the 30.
So the son did tell me that the 500K, right, definitely, yes, whatever that they want can tone down. But the debt after seeing the 30K, right, he refused to accept. So this one is hearing directly from like put me aback, right, is really the statement of, I like the way you present, I love your presentation, I love your design. I want to go with you, but I'm not willing to pay the 30,000. Then in this case, right, it goes back to the whole question on how much do people actually value design?
No, it seems that they're not willing to pay the 300, not the 30.
500k.
Yeah, from 5 to 1, right? So it's about 300-ish. So it seems like they're more not willing to pay the 300 rather than the 30.
So the son did tell me that the 500k, right, yeah, definitely, yes, whatever they want can tone down. But the dad, after seeing the 30k, right, he refused to accept. So this one is hearing directly from the son. Yeah. So that was painful. like what is the value of design in this general market? Not a lot of people would, or at least appreciate it.
I think the right messaging for the right people. It's on our owners to go and figure it out. We're not mind readers. You know, I face the same problems. So I also don't like to post. I always tell them, I can do a light version, Facebook light version of, it can be done. Importantly, you have to be comfortable with me and I will within your budget. So that's how I handle things from these experiences as well. But I still bash myself in the head. I always think like, no, I need to give the best, But that's not what people are looking for. I struggle with it. I struggle with it now still.
Also, I think when designers ask for budget, client's budget, I think a lot of assumption is like, if let's say my budget is 100,000, but if the actual cost for it, right, only amounts to 80,000, does it mean that, I will eat that extra 20,000 just to make it below 100? But I think that's the misconception, that if let's say your budget is 100k, we will make sure whatever that you want is all accounted for within the 100k. If everything that you want can go up to 75k maximum, sure, it's a win-win situation.
Yep.
I earn what I need to earn.
Yep.
You get to not spend the extra 25.
Or you could spend it on other things.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times clients have to be honest about their budget. I also understand, yes, there's naturally that fear that designers or the black sheeps will cut you lah. Yeah. But proper designers who really want the best for your house will not chop you. Right?
So this is where I see it, where, being good at design is not enough. You have to wear multiple hats, right? You need to
salesman.
You have to be a consultant, a salesman, a project manager, a site surveyor. You have to speak to other consultants, other QPs, professional engineers, and our width of knowledge has to be quite big. So that's the main difference that I see between Singaporeans or maybe Asians and Western designers. So over there, they segregate their roles very perfectly. Architect does it, the final look, but technical drawings done by the ID. But over here, we seem to has to do everything. So, what are the challenges you face when you have to wear these multi-hat roles?
I think the biggest challenge is time management. Because you see, in this case, if let's say I'm just acting as a consultant, I just need to delegate my other scope of works to say freelancers or my stuff, I'm able to focus more onto how the conceptual things are. And then for the, like say, the layout and things like that. But if let's say regarding D&B, design and build wise, if I have to be the one designing, I'm also the one liaising with client, liaising with suppliers, contractor, then also the one going down site. Takes up a lot of time. I always say, like, if you want the best for this one project, you jolly well make sure you put the 100% into that project. But because of the fees that we are earning and the duration of per project, right, 3 to 4 months average, we cannot possibly be only taking on one project. So if you take on 3 projects or 4 projects, then the attention span is being divided down 25% per project. Then out of that 25%, I still have to design, I still have to manage, I still have to problem solve, mitigate all these things, right? It is going to take up a lot of time and energy, and I'm not able to give the 100% to the specific client.
And there are times where I have to sweep the floors as well at site.
Yeah.
General housekeeping, floor sweeping.
No, I also
It does
got to
happen,
do, because of budget constraint. With all the dirty floor, even though you already protected it already, naturally there'll always be those partition ceiling dust or this kena onto vinyl floor. All the gap.
Oh no.
You go down there. Because then you also not enough or revenue or budget to hire those cleaning company. Own self, one whole 5-room flat over there own self. Scratch the floor.
So when I have these problems, it's usually a time thing. Like if some guy on the critical path gets delayed and he has to do work at a later stage where it might further disrupt things, we have to make sure that we have proper controls like dust control. So we talk about protection, plastic sheeting, vacuum, make sure we have all these things ready. Yes, it's a lot of preparation and recovery for a small amount of work, but once you jumble up the timelines, the effort is more than what it's diminishing already. So time is very important. But I'm sure no one can do everything.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that we, as designers in Singapore, we are overloaded with many roles.
Yeah.
We're expected to take on many roles. Not necessarily a bad thing. I feel that it's a very multifaceted job or career, and it's fun. I can't sit down for too long. I think this is the fun part of the work for me.
I think it's if you get to learn everything and do everything at the initial stage, it's a very good learning curve. Where from there, because there will definitely be things that you may not like about your roles or your industry, then that's something you figure over time after trying everything and say like, okay, for me, I mainly want to focus on consultancy, where I want to just design conceptually for client. Then this is my direction where I go. Then being able to assign it to other people, I would say is much better regarding what you mentioned, the Western culture or the Western industry itself.
So, do you have any advice for young people who want to take up a career in this industry?
I don't know whether this one can say or not.
No, just honest. I have my own set of
Okay,
advice.
there's this statement that my university lecturer told us. If you want a comfortable life, don't join architecture and design. if you want to suffer, then you jolly well have more than passion to go into the industry, especially for architecture.
That is beyond passion. What do you mean by more than passion? Yeah, so beyond passion, what do you mean by beyond passion? What more must we get ourselves into to
I
enjoy
think
this space?
it must really be like as a person you must be very resilient, because I think everybody in this industry have faced multiple setbacks, and it's really very, very depressing. But what is the ultimate goal that you want to achieve? Is it something you want to change about the industry? Is it something that you see yourself in the next 10 years being the top designer or architect in Singapore? Then that is your main driving factor. If it's just purely, I want to design something nice, you will not, unfortunately, last long. Because I do have a lot of friends who, after 1 to 2 years, they give up the whole industry. And then they went completely something else.
Selling cars.
Yeah, or art teacher, or the most common one I would say is
Part-time lecturer.
UX UI.
UX UI.
User experience, user interface. Yeah. That's the most common, which it's still related in terms of the micro scale of architecture and design. So I would say it's still partially related.
Yeah, but don't forget to mention there's always the spin-offs, the fashion design, graphic, product, VM. Yeah, there's such a big, wide range of things that people can get into.
Anything within the creative umbrella, I would say go for it. It's a lot of expression. Yeah, whether is it going into acting, filming, product design, or even fine arts on its own. I think most importantly, as long as it makes you happy, but also make sure this happiness earns you your living.
Personally, I want to be there to advise on how to bridge passion and earning a living. Because when we came out of school, we didn't get to have the benefit of anyone coaching us on this. It's always perfecting your craft, doing things properly, but they never tell you how to make money. But not in an unscrupulous way, but in a way that your value is well remunerated for. So I hope we can do something together and push the youth forward, encourage them, and make sure they can make this career a fulfilling one. All that being said, we have come to the end of our first podcast of Behind the Build. So please subscribe to us on YouTube, and if you enjoy it, we'll have more and better things for you. Thank you.